FanDuel friends and family, welcome in to what is the final Monday Night Football Q&A show here on the FanDuel channel. I'm Ryan Williams. You can find me on Twitter at RyanAlexander_W. And I'm joined, as always, by my usual friend and compadre, Mr. Jim Sannes himself. You can find him on Twitter at Jim Sannes, senior writer and analyst for Number Fire and FanDuel. Jim, how are we doing today, man? Monday Night Football.
Mixed feelings because yesterday was a very good day for DFS. Had a lot of fun with some Jamar Chase, Darrell Williams, Devin Singletary. Those guys did well for me. So, still riding that high, but then it's our final Monday night stream. So conflicted feelings here because excited with how yesterday went. Hope we can, duplicate that for today, but also sad that next Monday afternoon, I have no idea what I'm going to be doing as opposed to talking to you.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll just be talking about how our Sunday lines went to finish out the season as we're trying to figure out, what rookies and who are going to be playing and what studs are going to be coming into the mix. So it should be a fun full game of Sunday. But yeah, it'll be a nice little off day for Monday. We got back-to-back off days on Monday with the holiday being on the 17th too. So it'll be a nice little wind down season as we prepare for playoffs. But Jim, we got week 17 to close it out here tonight. We got the Cleveland Browns traveling into Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers and what should be an interesting one. We've talked about this in kind of the pre-show here about how to target this game in general. And as we always do, let's start it off by talking about the single game slate, as we have one team who's pretty much not playing for anything and another team that could be potentially playing for everything. I mean, a win here is still keeping the Steelers playoff hopes alive. They really, could have used some help with the Raiders losing yesterday, but they spoiled the fun there. So we got a flex game with the Raiders and Chargers next Sunday that could be for everything depending on what happens in Colts Jags. So this is going to be a fun slate to break down. We'll start it off here for the single game slate on FanDuel. And guys, if you're coming in, make sure you get your questions in, whether you're watching YouTube, Twitch, Facebook. We appreciate everybody rocking along. Starting off in the chat, Jim, we got Grim Fan who's coming in. No Monday next week. Yeah, Grim, there's no Monday Night Football next week. Everybody's playing on Sunday. So, maybe hit us up on Twitter and we'll talk about some things as it relates to the Sunday and get prepped for the playoffs. But yeah, there's no Monday Night Football action here, but we do have the final game tonight. And Jim, as we kind of break this down, I see you pulled up the single game slate there. Kind of what are your initial reactions here? I've seen a lot of people kind of talking about this game, maybe it being a little bit of a slower game than, that we're used to. And especially with these island games, we know that the unders are usually ones that we tend to lean on Thursday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, and Monday night. But I saw the action moving towards the over a little bit. I believe this game is now at 43.5 on the FanDuel Sportsbook. It opened at 42 with it being in Cleveland's favor. Now we know it's in Pittsburgh's favor. A lot of narrative around this game. What are you taking from everything, Jim, as we talk about this slate?
It's really weird to watch how much the spread has moved in this game. And that does influence a lot for the single game DFS slate. So that's why I'm bringing them up here, despite we're not talking about the betting aspect of this game just yet. But seeing this number open at Steelers plus 3.5 and now being Steelers minus 2.5, mostly due to motivation changes, which you alluded to, where Cleveland has now been eliminated, whereas Pittsburgh could still make it. 6 points is a lot. I know it's not across, it did cross 3. That's one key number, but 2, 1, 0, 1, 2, those aren't really key numbers. So it's not a change in that respect, but it's still 6 points and still cross 3. Right. So that's a really big movement. And I don't really know if that's how I think it kind of overreacted here, I guess is kind of, where I'm at. I think that it's a bit of an overreaction. So when I'm looking at the single game slate, I think, okay, if I believe the public is overreacting to the Browns being eliminated, I could say, okay, I think the Browns will win. The problem is it sounds like Kareem Hunt is going to play, and that negatively impacts Nick Chubb. I would still expect Nick Chubb to have a good role for tonight. They're facing a Steelers defense that has really struggled against the rush, but he does objectively just get downgraded with Kareem Hunt being in there because there's just less work for him to get. So it's kind of hard for me to be like, okay, I think the public is overreacting. I'm going to go to the Brown side here, get Nick Chubb at MVP, et cetera, because he does get downgraded with Kareem Hunt being there. So honestly, Ryan, and I think this is reflecting the projections over a number fire. I don't really know where to go at MVP. They've got Najee Harris is having the top projection, but you've got three guys all within 2.5 points of him. Deontay Johnson right there too. So honestly, I think it's pretty wide open at MVP. And if you just give me one lineup, I'd think pretty hard about where I want to go, because I don't think there's one clear route you must go at MVP for tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the running backs both at the top here with Chubb 16,000, 15,000 for Najee, they're going to be. I mean, this is where the game starts. People are going to, I feel like, worry about missing out on the scores from them. I do feel like that this game is going to lend to more passing action than we expect. So I am interested in the wide receivers a lot more so than the running backs, just because if the touchdowns don't get there, I mean, Najee is one thing, and Najee's probably the guy who I would put in a lineup before Chubb, as crazy as that sounds.
No, I agree.
Even with, I think I am still interested in Chubb if Kareem Hunt comes back, just because he's only played 2 games since week 6. But Najee, I mean, we saw last week against the Kansas City Chiefs, they were getting the doors blown off of them, and this dude still just sees the field. I mean, there's nobody competing for snaps with him at all. So it's tougher to not put him in. And we know that Ben likes to, dump it off short, and he could be used in the red zone. So still looking to get Najee there. I do think putting him at captain makes a ton of sense on the slate today, because if the touchdowns are coming for Pittsburgh, they'll just lean on the run. But yeah, Cleveland, it's just, the Chubb games, I guess if the game starts off in Cleveland's favor, that's where the Chubb lineups could really, we've seen Pittsburgh kind of have some slow starts. So if Cleveland gets up big, in the beginning, then I think that Chubb MVP lines can make sense. I pretty much want to just stay away from Chubb MVP lines, with him being the highest priced guy on the slate. And I'm much more apt to take the receivers on the Cleveland side.
Yeah, I think that what you said there is kind of a key thing. He's the highest salary guy, and Brandon Gadula has done a lot of research into golf stuff, where the highest salary golfer, the betting odds favorite, tends to be the most heavily rostered guy. So if we look at Nick Chubb here at $16,000, I think that despite the fact we've seen a lot of movement towards Pittsburgh, I wouldn't be shocked if he is the most popular MVP, which is another reason to potentially not be as high on him. In addition to Kareem Hunt being healthier for this game. So I'm with you, where I think that, to me, I'd like to be underweight on Nick Chubb at MVP relative to the field. I do still think that, it's worthwhile to have some Chubb lineups in there, because if the Browns win this game, he's going to do well. But having fewer of them than the field, I think, is the preferred way to go here. Problem is, if I'm not going with Chubb at MVP, what other Browns can I put there? Can I actually go Baker? I don't want to. I can, because I know that from a projections perspective, he's pretty close to the top. He's actually the highest projected Browns player for tonight. So in theory, I should be okay with him, but it doesn't feel good. So I guess I would go Baker, but nobody on Cleveland is really that attractive. So I think that I agree with you, where I do want to be underweight on Chubb at MVP, but it's so hard to talk myself into other guys. I will go Baker, because I think people have the same sentiment as me, where they don't want to use him, but I just don't feel good about it, even though I know it's probably the smart way to go.
No, I mean, I've been looking and playing around, and it is tough, Jim, because, I mean, you see, I got the Steelers over on today, so I think people can defer from that I am going to go with some Steelers onslaught lineups here tonight, with me only usually playing about 3 to 5 lineups when it comes to these single game slates. But yeah, Baker, I do have some interest in him, just because I think, Steelers come out big. They're really, everything's going to be about this being Ben's last home game in Heinz Field, and they've had a lot of success against this team in his career. So I think that Baker will be forced to throw, and we have seen them give up some big playability or big play scores to opposing wide receivers and or tight ends in recent games with the way the secondary is playing. So he does carry some merit there, and I think he's great leverage off of a guy like Nick Chubb. If the passing touchdowns do come through the air in Cleveland, that's just great leverage there, as most people will probably try and get Baker and Chubb into a lineup instead of, if they have to choose for one or the other. I think people have a hard time clicking Baker over Chubb's name. So I don't like it from the standpoint of how I think the game's going to go, but I will have a team that has Baker and probably 2 pass catchers with Najee as captain or Najee as MVP.
It doesn't feel good, but like it is just based on like the what the numbers are saying. We should do it, so we just kind of have to buck up and do it, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about both of these sides here as we're kind of getting into the slate. And shout out to everybody who's coming into the chat. I want to bring DJ Cassier asking about, any odds boost for tonight. I did see that right now the only odds boost for this game is the Steelers and Browns to each score 1 rushing touchdown and 1 passing touchdown. That's boosted to plus 420. I think that's a pretty solid boost. From 320, you're getting another 100 on top of that. If you think that Chubb and or Kareem Hunt can find the end zone on the ground, Baker throws to any one of these guys, I think we can. I feel confident in Najee and or whoever else would rush a touchdown for the Steelers and getting a pass touchdown there through 4 quarters. So I like the over in this game. I should throw that out there as well too, which is leading me to go to this boost because I do think points will be scored. So plus 420, I think is a nice bet, DJ, if you want to get behind that. I'm sure as we get closer to the slate locking, we will have another odds boost or 2 for the game. So that'll be fun. Lots been made about Ben Roethlisberger's passing touchdown prop. I was talking about it. I saw the boy Tom Vecchio talking about it. Tom's a sharp guy, so I was happy that he could give me, a little confidence there. It was plus money for him to throw for two or more touchdowns, which is now at minus 102, I believe, on the FanDuel Sportsbook. That's still pretty nice to get that number on him. So those are the bets that I was looking at.
Yeah, the one I like is also Ben related. It's moving though. So if you want it, I would get it now. That's over 235.5 passing yards for Ben Roethlisberger. And it's not because of the narrative of this being likely his final home game. It's because I'm not sure they'll be able to run. And so like, if you're just doing math, thinking about this, like, okay, probably 350 yards, something like that. That might be a high projection, whatever. Like, are they really going to get 120 on the ground? I'm not sure that they will based on the way this team operates. So 235.5, it was 233 earlier on. So that's been rising, but I think that there is still value there on Ben's over passing yardage prop. So I think the touchdown prop is also in play for sure. Cause like, if you look at Najee, and this actually does impact some stuff for Najee, I'm not overthinking it, but like, so Najee Harris recently has not had a 40% red zone share since week number 6. And he had a 40% red zone share in every game to that point. So they've been throwing a lot in the red zone and they've been criticized for that, but that does lend itself to some passing touchdown props for Ben as well. So I think that one works for sure. I prefer the passing yardage one because it's, a little bit like smoother, I guess is the right way to phrase it. But like the number on the over for touchdown passes is pretty good.
Yeah, no, I love that. And Ben, to his credit, this guy has had some insane success against Cleveland. I think he's only lost 2 games versus this team at home. So he should be really, in his bag tonight, ready to fire off, especially with the home crowd rocking behind him. I wanted to bring in Aaron Rasmus's question here on Facebook that's coming in here. And Aaron, shout out to you for coming in. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you as well, man. We're getting some action here on the Monday Night Football game. And he was asking about just, the previous matchup and kind of really having that core of these guys. And you're looking at the core here of Najee, Deontay, Pat Freiermuth, Nick Chubb, Landry. I mean, those are the guys who you think have the safest floor. If you're building cash games, you would want to be thinking those guys first. Tough to jam all in. He's asking about if Hunt is out, maybe we can go Dearness Johnson. Dearness Johnson is not a guy that I have been targeting at all in Cleveland games. It's just Nick Chubb or bust, it seems like, with this team. And they have been in some interesting first half game scripts where, you know, they do get out to a lead or can get Chubb going early, and then he's able to just get over that 100-yard threshold and really make it a score that you feel comfortable with having. Are you interested in Dearness Johnson at all, Jim, if Kareem Hunt is officially ruled out?
Yeah, I think there are better lower salary plays we could turn to if there's no Kareem Hunt. You know, Johnson did have 66 yards of scrimmage last week, but that was a couple, I believe, broken screens that led to that high total. Only 4 carries and 2 targets in that game. And right. I also do expect Hunt to play. So, I think that, to me, Johnson not really on my radar. I think there are other guys I would turn to as some lower salary plays. And honestly, like the guy who I would point to first as being a guy who is kind of undersized is Ray McLeod. 8 targets this past week, 8 targets 2 weeks before that as well. Only 3 in week 15, but we've seen Chase Claypool's role take a pretty serious hit recently. If we look at the past 4 games here, Ray McLeod has a 17% target share. That's actually second on the team behind just Deontay Johnson. That's above Chase Claypool. It is above Najee Harris. Freiermuth obviously missed one of those games, but like Ray McLeod actually has a legitimate role. A couple downfield targets recently. He had 2 red zone targets last week too. So he's on the field. They need some like kind of funky stuff to make the offense work because it's not good. So like, honestly, if I'm looking for like a salary saver, and Aaron, if you want a salary saver to help jam in those guys, I think that McLeod at $6,500 probably the way I would go here. Is that too far for you, Ryan? Or are you interested in McLeod too?
No, I mean, it is interesting just when I'm trying to build teams in here where you're looking at, just throw it in, Najee, Roethlisberger, Deontay, Landry. If you don't want to get Chubb.
Perfect.
That's perfect. And I was even going to say Baker's actually interesting there with Najee as captain, but playing Ben over Baker. You have 7,000 left, and then that leaves you $500 on the table, which we know leaving money on the table on a single game slate will get you a nice little it'll prevent you from duping too much with lineups, as people will try to allocate that salary there. So I do think Claypool has not been what we thought he was going to be coming into 2021 based off of his 2020 year. His antics have pretty much just, the transitive property has happened from Antonio Brown to Chase Claypool, who's basically just filling that void for him. I mean, the antics have been there. Him and Tomlin have been getting into it. Disappointing Roethlisberger on some of the drops here. It's just been not a fun season for him, but he is seeing the field, so I think I will have to talk myself into having some Claypool exposure, but I do like getting Ray McLeod at, little ownership based off of what we think, especially if people are down on the passing attack for the Steelers. I think he's interesting. I do think I wanted to talk about the Cleveland wide receivers as well too, Jim, as we talk about, I think Jarvis Landry, he's a guy that I always try to get into lineups when they're playing Pittsburgh. I think for whatever reason, this guy just loves going up against Pittsburgh. And has in his career. And so even at 11K, I feel confident in getting to him. But these ancillary guys for Cleveland, I'm trying to figure out how to decipher them, because we got DPJ, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Rashad Higgins, and then the guy Anthony Schwartz, who Anthony Schwartz saw, his snap count go up last week. And they've already been talking about him getting more run as they close the season to try and figure out what they have in him. And he's 6K on the single game slate. I am interested in getting some exposure to Anthony Schwartz if people aren't too privy to that news.
Yeah, I opened up the player pool and was like, okay, I want to see where Donovan Peoples-Jones is, because he gets downfield targets. He's pretty athletic. And he's the type of player I like to target. He's also had 3 downfield targets now, 3 consecutive games. 2 of those were where a lot of guys were out. But then you pull out the player pool and you see that he's only $500 less than Jarvis Landry. And it's like, Okay, well, there goes that idea. Like that's the gap there is not big enough. Now, with that said, that could lead to people just saying, okay, I don't want DPJ. I should just go to Jarvis. So maybe there is like a tournament based strategy where you go with DPJ as a result of the downfield work, as a result of the fact that he will be lower rostered than Jarvis. I think Jarvis, obviously, the straight up better play. Maybe you can talk yourself into DPJ just as a result of likely depressed roster rates there. As far as other guys on this team, I mean, Higgins is a guy Baker has trusted for a very long time. He is, I think he's not the most like talented football player, but he is a good football player. He gets open, and like Baker trusts him. Is that enough for me to be like pounding the table for him? Maybe, because like, last week they had everyone back and he still had 6 targets in that game. Maybe that's enough. So I think that like he's somewhat interesting and I could get there. Do you have a preference between Higgins and Schwartz? Because I think that they're both at least like worth discussing here.
Yeah, I like Schwartz, I think, for the relief that he offers as far as salary goes. Higgins is just he's good when there's not somebody else there who can compete for targets. If this game is kind of getting out of hand or whatever, I mean, maybe they take Jarvis out and, something like last night happens in the Minnesota and Green Bay game. Like if the Steelers are Green Bay and they are just controlling this game and Cleveland has nothing to play for, then we could just see, okay, we know what they have in Jarvis Landry. We kind of know what they have in Peoples-Jones, and they've liked him over the past couple of years. Maybe they just let, Higgins and Schwartz run it out, late in the third quarter, all of the fourth quarter, and then he has some merit there. But if this game is competitive, like Jarvis and DPJ are not leaving the field. And then we got 3 tight ends who are healthy from them. And we know how much Cleveland loves to run 12 personnel. And, tight ends against Pittsburgh is kind of a thing. So, and vice versa on the other side. So I am interested in the tight ends in general in this game as well. So that just leads me to not play Higgins pretty much at all today.
I think that's probably the right way to go. And like, when I was up on Schwartz's page, there was a report from earlier this week about how like they want to get him more involved. They want to see what he can do. And like, why not? He's been in and out of the lineup. So yeah, I think that Schwartz over Higgins, to me, pretty easy call. I think that Schwartz in the same realm as McLeod, where he's like a super low salary guy who does give you a lot of relief there.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And so before I do kind of want to touch on the Cleveland tight ends, Jim, but I think more importantly, let's talk about the Steelers side. And if, I'm touting Ben Roethlisberger throwing over 1.5 touchdowns. Okay, so who are those touchdowns going to? How good has Deontay Johnson been this year? I mean, this dude is an absolute stud. I believe he's leading the team in red zone targets with 27. Second on the team is Pat Freiermuth with 18. I think those are the 2 guys that I want to start my lineups with that have been Roethlisberger on them. We talked about Ray Mcleod. We talked about Chase Claypool. Are you okay with playing? I guess it's really playing Deontay Johnson at this expense of Najee Harris, unless you're building onslaughts and try and fit them both with some of the cheap Cleveland options. I think you have to choose one or the other. Would you be more apt to take Deontay in some lineups than Najee?
Yeah, I think so, because like the question is more so to me, like, how often can I go Deontay at MVP? Because I think that like his range of outcomes is good enough to justify that as being worth a discussion. You go over here to the number fire projections. Obviously, he's ranked 5th in this game in terms of projections, but like there's an easy path to him having the highest score in this game. You look back to a couple weeks ago against the Ravens, 26.5 FanDuel points. He had 95 yards week before that. So like he can put up yardage. He can score touchdowns. As you mentioned, the red zone usage there is very good for him. So honestly, I think it's more the bigger question for me is how often I go to MVP with him over Najee. And like, I think it's decently often. Like, let's say you give me 10 lineups and I have to use those 2 at MVP. I'd probably go like 6-4 in favor of Najee. Like, I think that to me, they're pretty close. So yeah, I'm very comfortable going with Deontay over Najee just because the volume will be there and that the volume is the main appeal for Najee. So like if the volume is the main appeal on both guys, I'm trying to decide who will be the more efficient between the 2. And honestly, like it could be either guy. So I want to account for that in my allocation of exposures at MVP.
Yeah, absolutely. And just the role that he has in the offense. I
Yeah.
mean, Ben just absolutely trusts him with no avail, which is, pretty much a Jekyll and Hyde scenario. I mean, he was forced to trust him because Antonio Brown was gone last year and he needed
Right.
somebody to step up. But just with the drops and everything that Deontay was dealing with last year, it's compared to, what's happened this year, I think is a huge testament to his role on the team and just what he's been able to do. Okay, Jim, as we're getting here, pretty much like 5 minutes left, and shout out to everybody who's getting the questions in here in the chat. We appreciate you guys rocking along with us here on the Monday Night Football Q&A. I want to bring in Hunter Lingill. I think that's how I'm saying it, Hunter. If not, you can always correct me in the chat. But he's asking any concern with the Browns having nothing to play for. I think that's a concern for both Jim and I on this side. It's gonna really be hard for me to play more than 3 Browns, I guess, in a lineup. So really that's like me playing Baker with 2 pass catchers and Najee at MVP is the only way that I'll probably get to 3 Browns, if I'm usually probably only building lineups with 1 or 2 of them in there. It's just tough, especially how they played against this team in the past. Do you agree, Jim, or am I speaking for you?
Well, it's not just that, but I think the bigger concern for me with having a lot of Browns in there is that they spread stuff out so much. Like they just use a lot of dudes. Yeah. Like it's not a situation where you get Jarvis Landry with a 40% target share. You don't get Nick Chubb getting every single rush and target out of the backfield. Whereas with the Steelers, you do get that from Najee, get that from Deontay Johnson. So just naturally, you're going to favor the Steelers over the Browns. You do think the Browns win. I think that like you're going to wind up having a lot of interest in those Steelers guys. So yeah, I agree with you. And I think that there are multiple reasons to do that. I think the one route, like let's say you think the Browns win this game, the one route to having 4 Browns is including Chase McLaughlin, their kicker. I think that if you put him not at MVP, that's just the way I click. Don't put him at MVP. Let's put Baker at MVP. If we put Baker at MVP, you do have like a negative correlation because like every Baker touchdown means it's not a field goal for McLaughlin. But like, I think that situation where you could feel better about having hypothetically 4 Browns in there and you got 10,000 left on the table, that's not too bad. So I think that's the one route to having 4 Browns. But for the most part, my skew will be towards Steelers more so due to the concentrated usage than just the fact the Browns in theory have nothing to play for now.
Yeah. I like that. That makes a ton of sense there. And we didn't even talk about the kickers, but I do like getting some exposure to Chris Boswell if the Steelers aren't able to convert. I guess Chase on the other side too, although it does always seem like opposing kickers do have a hard time in Heinz Field. So that's something that kind of keep in mind. Plus we're looking at Cleveland getting in red zone opportunities, red zone areas for the opportunities. So that's always tough for me to bank on, but that's interesting. Wanted to bring Aaron Rasmus back in for Facebook. He's asking about fading or talking about fading both quarterbacks in this matchup. And I absolutely do love that from a game narrative scenario. We're not getting a high over under total in this game at 43.5. If we get, the touchdowns coming from Chubb and Najee and only, let's say Baker only throws for 1 touchdown and Ben only throws for 1 and you get the guys right. Or even if Baker throws a touchdown to a guy who you don't need to have, there is some merit to having these running backs without the quarterbacks. And I do think that will be, a great tournament lineup to make. So I'm bored with that as well, Aaron.
Yeah, and Brandon Gadula has done research on single game slates, and he found that the lower the scoring, the more likely it is that kickers are in the lineup. And kickers are in the lineup because teams are not converting red zone trips into touchdowns, and that's bad for quarterbacks. So I think that both those things tie in together. You bump up kickers in low total games, bump down quarterbacks. Now it could be, like you said, Ryan, this game could go over, in which case we do want to get to the quarterbacks potentially there. But if Aaron, sounds like you think this game will be lower scoring, if you think that bumps up kickers and bumps down quarterbacks.
Yes, absolutely. Would definitely have a kicker, if not 2, in a lineup where you're not playing the quarterbacks there. Real quickly, I saw Grim Fan hop in here on YouTube with a question about the tight ends. I did say we would touch on this. Austin Hooper, Harrison Bryant, David Njoku, all likely to suit up for Cleveland today. Do you have a sense on where we can project the ball to go? I think actually the red zone targets go in Njoku, Hooper, and Bryant, if I'm not mistaken. I think Njoku has about 15 red zone targets and 10 for Austin Hooper. I had it written down here, and I'll look it up as you're 15. It's actually 15 for Hooper, 10 for Njoku, 3
Yeah.
for Harrison Bryant. Do you have a read on these guys at all, Jim?
I think that like if you think it's a bit higher scoring, I would want to go in Joku because like he's the guy with the better like big play upside. So that would push me towards him. But if you think it's more of a straightforward game, that would
Yeah.
lead me towards Hooper. So I don't know. I tend to like Njoku just because like he does get some downfield targets, and I tend to like that. It means he can pay off pretty quickly. 14 total downfield targets for Njoku so far this year. Hooper has 4. Harrison Bryant has 5. So I kind of like Njoku from that perspective because I do like the ability to get some good yardage on one throw.
Yes, I tend to agree. I would most likely lean David Njoku, who's actually $500 cheaper than Austin Hooper, so to speak. But these tight ends are so hard to predict, so it makes it tough to project any of these guys. But I guess if I'm building around with these Baker lines, I should play around with a tight end or two to see what comes out of there. Chris Gorley coming in on Facebook needs Deontay Johnson to stay under 13 points to win a championship. I guess, standard or PPR, Chris, is kind of what I'd say. If it's standard, you might have a chance there if things are flowing a different way. But PPR, that's going to be a tough bout. But, crazier things have happened. So good luck to you and your championship, sir. We'll be pulling for you over here. It's PPR. So good luck to you. We'll knock on wood for you here that you're able to do it. I actually need some Deontay Johnson magic on my end, but I'll root for you, Chris. You coming in on the chat, supporting the channel. So I'll definitely root for you, man. And hopefully we can make some money on the FanDuel single game slate. Guys, that's going to wrap it up for us. I think real quickly. Oh, there were a couple questions, Jim, just about James Washington.
Sure.
I know you mentioned Ray McLeod.
Ray J. McLeod sounds way cooler. I'm on board with that.
Yeah, think about changing your name, Ray. Any read on James Washington, who he's really, it seems like he's utilized in spurts. Kind of out there when especially when Claypool's having antics and causing penalties, they bring him in, and he then we'll look at him, but much more of a rapport with Mason Rudolph, the backup quarterback, and I think that's when he comes in and really has his shine. But any read on him today?
Yeah, I mean, like he's an option. He's $7,500, whatever it is. So like you could go there. He gets targets. He can get some downfield looks. Like you could go there. I just don't have a huge preference for him. It's more of like I'm praying on a deep ball, and like I'm kind of doing that in Joku too. So like whatever.
Right.
But I think that for me personally, I'm higher on McLeod than I am on James Washington. Washington could very well outscore him because like neither guy gets a lot of work. But I think I'd rather take some shots in McLeod personally, just because I wouldn't expect a ton of people to be on him for this game.
Fair enough. Yeah, and I think James Washington has earned a little bit more of that equity of people wanting to play him for not missing out on that if he does catch a touchdown there. And this could be a game where touchdowns do come at a premium. So just by getting the right guy, you could be setting yourself up in good position. Guys, that's going to do it here for the final Monday Night Football Q&A here on the FanDuel channel. It's been a fun season rocking along. This actually being my first season rocking along with you guys on the FanDuel channel. So it's been fun. Jim, I appreciate you, giving me the driving ed. I got the steering wheel, but you're in the passenger seat, and you kind of got the steering wheel too, just in case things go off the rails. So I appreciate you coming in. I appreciate Justin, who was filling in for you as well, rocking along as well too. It's been a fun one, guys, and hopefully we can make some more money tonight on the Monday Night Football single game slate. Guys, make sure you're also going over to the FanDuel Sportsbook and putting some bets down there. We talked about the boost. There should be more coming. Also a fun one just to get action on. Jim, any final words for the team, for the season, for everybody who's been joining us?
That was a blast having you along for the first year. Obviously did a good job filling in, not just for this, but also with the Sunday Q&As, needed those too. So like, happy to have season 1 under the books, and I'm excited for season 2 coming just around the corner, which is upsetting to think about that like September's not that far away, but I'm excited to run it back with you again next year.
Yeah, 9 months, not that far away. What are you talking about, Jim? Yeah, there's no off season here for us at FanDuel. And we have a ton planned for you guys in 2022. So we appreciate everybody who's been rocking along, and trust us when we say that there's a lot more to come. But we still got week 17 before we can officially close out the season next week for week 18. Again, no Monday Night Football Q&A next week, but we'll still have some stuff on the YouTube channel. Guys, make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel to get all of that content. You can hit that notification bell as well to get the notifications when we go live so you never miss anything. Signing off for Jim Sonis. You can find him on Twitter at Jim Sonis. I'm Ryan Williams. You can find me on Twitter at RyanAlexander_W, and we'll catch you guys next time, FanDuel fam. Until then, get this money. Peace.